is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
And we're back here on Kansas City Sports Network with another episode of The Breakdown. I'm Matt Hamilton. That's Chase Daniel. And Chase, we got playoff football coming up. We found out the matchups late Sunday night, and it is a rematch of the game we saw in Germany as the Chiefs are going to host the Dolphins. What are your first impressions as we look towards this rematch?
Well, the first impression is that they put it on Peacock. Like, what? I mean, listen, smart move. Okay, I get it. But, I think this was the move all along. You're going to put the Chiefs on. I mean, they're going to get 5 million new subscribers based on that. So, this is the first year that they're exclusively streaming on Peacock. And look, that's the way the digital age is going. And I do know that local fans can get it on cable TV, but it's just like, man, like I'm going to have to go in because I want to watch the game. It's going to be a heck of a game. So that's the first takeaway from just a 40,000 foot view up look. And the second takeaway, I got three. The second takeaway is the weather for this game. I just FaceTimed my mother-in-law this morning with the kids, getting them ready for school. There's like 12 inches of snow right now on the ground in KC. And it looks like a winter wonderland there. I checked the weather at kickoff Saturday night, 0 degrees. So weather is going to play a huge factor in this. You got a South Beach, Miami Dolphins team coming up to KC against a Patrick Mahomes-led team. And my third takeaway is just how banged up the Miami Dolphins are right now. No Raheem Mostert, no Jalen Waddle, Chubb, Phillip. I mean, everyone, it seems like they're falling apart right now, which is not a good thing. And so it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. Tyreek Hill coming back. The Miami Dolphins just signed Justin Houston, so revenge game for both of those guys. There are so many storylines going into it.
Yeah, and with the injuries too, Van Ginkel's out now, Jerome Baker's out. It's the Dolphins' defense it looks completely different. We're looking at, and we'll go back through some of the tape from that meeting in Germany, and it looks like a completely different Dolphins defense from the one that we saw against the Bills, and that we'll be seeing on Wild Card Weekend. And the weather is going to be an interesting factor. It doesn't seem, I'm trying to think of a way to say this that doesn't sound like I'm quoting Frozen, but Mahomes has never really been bothered by the cold. But we haven't really seen Tua in that type of environment yet. So other than that snow game in Buffalo last year, that didn't go very well. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But let's start digging into some of this tape here from the last time these two teams met. If you remember, the Chiefs got off to that hot start. Things didn't go as well in the second half. Here's a key 3rd and 5 late in the first half. Chiefs trying to get some points on the board. What stood out to you about this one?
Well, love the fact that they're in empty, trying to get a tell, and Vic Fangio's defense, man or zone. You see they're in zone, so they keep up the play, and you're going to have what we call like a little money route, a cash route from a 3-by-1 bunch formation down here. The ball's in the middle of the field. Rashee Rice is all the way on the inside in the slot. Okay, Travis Kelce's on the outside, get a man zone read. And you're going to see Travis Kelce right here come on a shallow cross. Okay, and he's open. It's not the read as number 1, though, right here. And so he bypasses them, which I think is a smart move. And, man, this is where you really want to alert Travis Kelce. But you see Rashee Rice right here doing a really good job on this option route. We call it a cash just because it's a 3-by-1, but this option route where you can break out. Okay, you're top. If there's green grass, go up to 5 yards, break out. He speed cuts it right here. And not the best throw by Patrick Mahomes. He pulls the string a little bit just to make sure that this ball doesn't get undercut and intercepted. And actually, it's a really good catch by Rashee Rice. This is sort of Rashee's coming out game of sorts where, hey, he was the one that needs to step up, and he has stepped up through the entire season. I'd argue that he's become their number 1 target, really, other than even with Travis Kelce on the field the last 8 or 10 games. So just the amount of trust right here. This is a show. I mean, like you said, though, it is a completely different defense on that side of the football. And Vic Fangio is calling a completely different style of defense. They're blitzing more. You saw it with Josh Allen on game 272 Sunday Night Football. So it's going to be interesting to see, first of all, if the Chiefs can match what they're doing defensively, get it protected, and they're going to play a lot of man-to-man coverage. That's the biggest thing. for me. They didn't play a lot of man-to-man coverage in this game, and the Chiefs got shut out in the second half. So they've sort of switched what they're doing. They're going to have to be man coverage in a cold. Expect the run game to get going too.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big key. You got to see Pacheco get going. But you mentioned it, big moment in this game for Rice and Mahomes and the momentum that they've built through the rest of the season. It was a big play in this game too, because it kept the drive going and led to this next play that we're going to get to here in the red zone. This touchdown to Jerick McKinnon, who obviously is not going to be out there for the Chiefs in this one either. But as far as the play design and the way this was executed, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I love that they're in a trips bunch formation. It's a tight bunch, so we call it nasty. Nasty split means, hey, the point guy of the bunch, which I think Justin Watson is 2 yards away from the right tackle. And you can see Jerick McKinnon right here. He's going to sneak out a little halfback burst route. We call it burst. You're bursting to the field. You're bursting to open space. And it's pretty similar to the play they ran that you just saw, except you're going to have Travis Kelce come on the shallow cross. You're going to have tight end on an option route, but that's not really an option. You have to break out. You want to clear it out, and then you have a basic cross rather than a corner from the point guy, and you want to be able to run to green grass. And so when Jerick McKinnon bursts right here to green grass, there's a lot of attention on Travis Kelce coming through that middle of the field right here. He gets 2 guys, really 3 guys, running at him and covering him. And it's just like we said on the previous play, they played man-to-man coverage a few snaps. This was one of them, and the Chiefs had an answer for man-to-man coverage on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 in the high red zone. And we've talked about it before on this channel, and we're going to continue to talk about it, is that the Chiefs have a really, really good plan in the red zone, and it showed right here.
Absolutely. And, you have to wonder, is Xavier Howard going to be back to this game? Because I think that would affect the plans in the secondary too. They did just get Javon Holland back. That's the one area where they might be close to 100%, but obviously we talked about the linebacking core is decimated. And so is the pass rush. And we saw that Miami pass rush with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb become a factor, especially in the second half. The final play we're going to look at, some of the Chiefs' struggles. One, they didn't get into favorable down and distances. And when that happened, those pass rushers went to work. Obviously, it's going to be, as you said, Justin Houston and Melvin Ingram maybe on the edge instead of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. But what did you see here?
Well, on 3rd down, the Chiefs, for the most part, like to control the edges. And obviously, 3rd and 20 is not great. But I would just say, hey, make sure we're chipping and nudging our tight ends and running backs, which they're not really doing right here. Okay, second of all, 3rd and 20, the amount of the percentage that you're going to get this is slim to none. And so the only thing about this play, I mean, look, they're going for it. They're going to continue to go for it because they got Patrick Mahomes. He can make some really good plays. It's just 2 clear out routes on the inside and a dagger by the outside. The back has a hard time getting out through all this mess. And at the end of the day, when you're holding on to the ball this long, you have to make sure you have 2 hands on it. Okay, you see you get a chip here by the running back, but the chip obviously gets him to go on the inside a little bit. And so many people dropping so deep, there's no one in the green grass. There's no check down over that way. And when Mahomes is stepping up with the ball, he's been pretty good through his career. When you got guys right in your face, I mean, you got to protect the football. You got to make sure that you handle it with 2 hands. And I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is the only way they're going to lose the game, right? Like if Mahomes turns the ball over or puts the ball in harm's way, a weather game like this, turnovers are everything. And if you can just keep the ball, and it's going to be a much lower scoring game than probably people think because of the weather. It plays that big of a factor when it's 0 degrees outside. So you just got to make sure that all these little small details you pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's been uncharacteristic that we've seen this year from this Chiefs team is, they're usually so buttoned up with the small details. And this year, that hasn't always been the case. But beyond, beyond the offensive side of the ball, obviously all eyes are going to be on Tyreek, his return to Arrowhead as well. How much of a problem, because he hasn't looked the same since the angle. He's out there, he's playing, but it seems like every game there's a moment where it's bothering him. How much of a factor, especially in the cold, do you think that ankle is going to be for Tyreek?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. He does not look 100%, but an 80% Tyreek is better than most receivers in the league. But The thing with cold, obvious, right, is that you're going to have to keep it warm. You're going to have to keep a heat back on it. Once those ankles, especially ankles, because I've had some high ankle sprains before, when they get cold and you don't continue moving them, it's like impossible to get it warmed back up. So we're going to see him riding the bike. We're going to see him with heat packs on it. We're going to see him trainers constantly moving it. And if that's the case, look, it's easy to game plan. I say easy. It's easier to game plan defensively for Tyreek Hill and what Spags can do if he's the only really threat on the field, right? You could double him. You could do this. But when Jalen Waddle's playing, when Raheem Mostert's playing, when Devin's playing, all these guys, that's what makes it go. And so it's going to be interesting to see if those guys play to open up the playbook for Tyreek. If not, then you're going to see a lot of cloud safety or cloud corner with a safety over top of Tyreek the entire game.
Yeah, if those guys play, don't play. It's going to be almost impossible for the Dolphins. And it is a big game from a storyline, like narrative perspective with this Chiefs team. I think it's a little ridiculous that it's still being, the Tyreek Hill trade is still being brought up because the Chiefs won a Super Bowl last year without him. But with the issues they've had, we've been hearing a lot about it. But I don't know, looking at this, from my perspective, Chris Jones isn't back with this team if they don't trade Tyreek Hill. I don't think they have the money. They wouldn't have really had the money to pay both. Trev McDuffie, probably not on this team. And this defense is the number 2 defense in the NFL this year because they, invested some of that money from Tyreek elsewhere and some of those draft picks. So while I don't think it should still be a crazy storyline because they've both been successful without each other, if Tyreek comes in there and kills them, this is going to be a story again.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from national media perspective on why this Tyreek trade is still a hot topic, and I can see why, is because of the struggles of the receivers.
Yeah,
and because of how their Chiefs are averaging on offense almost a touchdown less per game than they were last year. And I know last year wasn't with Tyreek, but it just seems like, hey, you traded away your best player. He's 1,800 receiving yards, was going for 2,000. And we're stuck here just trying to score 22 points a game. So I get it. I see it. I just look, at the end of the day, a lot of people want to talk about playoffs. And the biggest thing for playoffs with me, I've been a lot in my career, is it doesn't matter your record. Like, it really doesn't. You're in the tournament. You're 0-0. It sounds cliche, but playoffs is all about matchups, right? So are you at home? Who are you playing defensively? Who are you playing offensively? These game plans are going to look pretty different than most game plans. You're going to spend a lot more time just thinking about the Miami Dolphins on defense. You're going to break down the last 4 games of their defense rather than the first 4. You're probably going to look at the whole season and look at a tape that, hey, what's hurt Vic Fangio's Miami Dolphins defense? And you're going to do the opposite on like Spags' side. Okay, what have they been really good at? In Miami, it's the quick pass game. It's getting the ball out. Okay, we don't necessarily need pressure. You got to get pressure with your front 4. So all these small little details and things, like these game plans could look completely different. And it's all about who can bring the wood, who can play good defense, who can protect the football, and ultimately who has the best quarterback. And for me, that's the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to argue that. And when you look at it, just one last question from the Dolphins side, the story with them, they've 1-5 against teams that are in the playoffs. Personally, I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries, especially of late, the games that they've lost. I mean, this team has just been decimated.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more the injuries, or do you think there's something like fundamentally flawed with what we're seeing from the Miami Dolphins right now?
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with injuries, but the narrative all year long, and rightfully so, right? They've beaten one team with a record over 500, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. And Dallas Cowboys this whole year have played horrible on the road. So, Dallas is a different team at home. I just think that there's a lot going on within that locker room, and look, the head coach, I think, is doing a hell of a job. Really like him and what he's doing, his attitude. But at the end of the day, talk is only so much. You got to actually go out there and do it. And if Miami, to me, can go into Arrowhead and win, then it'll put that narrative to rest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a golden opportunity for them. Golden opportunity for the Chiefs to quiet down some of the doubters as well. I can't wait to check it out on Peacock. And we'll be right back here next week to break it all down for you guys and hopefully look ahead to the Chiefs' opponent in the AFC divisional round. So for Chase Daniel, I'm Matt Hamilton. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for tuning in.